Hello friends, today we're going to install OSMC, also known as KODI, on a Raspberry Pi, and we're going to configure it. Now I don't want to get into the whole debate about the add-ons and plugins that you can get for KODI, and I know a lot of people say KODI is dead and that everybody should go to Plex, but I honestly still think for pure raw media sharing in a household, KODI is probably one of the best ways to do it if it's configured properly. And configuring it properly depends on your situation. I have KODI set up to share media files that I own on a server, and all that information is shared into a SQL database where they're all indexed, and it's way more efficient for me to do it that way than it is for me to pay for a subscription to Plex. Now, I will admit Plex is a very nice product. There's nothing wrong with it. It just doesn't really suit my needs, and some of the hardware that I'm running does not like Plex. So I prefer to run KODI. And I figured since we're messing around with Raspberry Pis, I might as well install KODI on it because that is a big thing that people want to do. Now, if you're not familiar, KODI is a fork of the Xbox Media Center, which basically sets up a menuing system to allow you to index and catalog media for display on your device, and you can use it to do a number of things. And once we get it running, we can discuss some of those things you can do. But we're not going to install any add-ons. We're not going to install any additional stuff. We're just going to work with the basic image because, and a lot of times, that's all you need. You don't really need all of the additional stuff. In fact, most of the additional things get shut down so fast anyway, it really doesn't matter to install them, because by the time you get done installing them and find out where they are, unless they're locked in private, they're gone. So if you're looking for a solution to share media, this might be a good solution for you. Now, OSMC is basically an image of an interpretation of KODI that's maintained. So it's an open source media center built for the people, by the people. So it has its own menu structure, but the first thing we're going to do is actually set it back to the traditional KODI menu structure because I prefer that. They have an app store with some things in it that are useful. I like OSMC for a lot of things because it's simple to use. It runs on several devices. It does a lot of things, and it does them fairly well. So I think we are running, well, we're going to install the current version as of February 5th, 2018, which, since we're doing it on a Raspberry Pi, we're going to download the Raspberry Pi image, which there is pretty much one image for everything. And they also have it for the Vero. And if you happen to have an Apple TV first generation, you can actually install it on there. So they have Windows, OS X, and Linux installations as well. Or I think that's how to install them. Yeah, that's how to install them on these products. It's easy to do. Honestly, Raspberry Pi 1, 0, and W, 2 and 3, Vero, Vero 2, Vero 4K, Apple TV 1. Those are your choices of options. Now, I usually grab the most current one because that's less patches it has to download. And we're going to be running the 2017.12-1 image. So I've already downloaded this, and we're going to burn it to a card, which I've already done. So we're going to select it right there in Etcher, and then we're going to select the drive that we're going to burn it to, which I have already done. And then we're going to flash the disk. Now, for those of you who are curious, I actually just updated my Etcher, so it turned off some of my settings. So after an update, I go in and I check them, and I found out that it removed the checkbox and eject on success. So I recheck that box. I tell it can report anonymously because I honestly don't care, and I leave the rest of them unchecked. So I burned the disk. It took about 3 to 4 minutes to burn. It wasn't very long. It's not a very big image file. And now we're going to shut down the PC. We're going to go over to the Razer Ripsaw, and I'm going to take you through the initial launch and configuration of OSMC, at least how I do it on the Raspberry Pi. And we're going to process updates, and we're going to see where we end up from there. And I know there was an update, I think, today. So there's at least some update that needs to be done, and I'm pretty sure there's an update that needs to be done since December 1st anyway. The images you're downloading are bundled images, and they're not necessarily the most current. So probably before you even get started, you'll want to run the update. And I'll show you how to do that once we get in. But for now, I'm going to shut this part down, switch over to the Ripsaw, boot up the Raspberry Pi with the file image in it, and you can see exactly what's going on. So I'll be right back to do that. Okay, we've got color bars. And now we're booting. And OSMC is formatting the device for use. Now, I do have a keyboard and mouse set up for this particular demonstration because it's easier to move around in than setting up custom commands in CEC. So we're going to just do this based on keyboard and mouse. I may later do a thing about how to set up a Logitech controller and some other things to make your life easy. But for now, we're just going to use the keyboard and mouse because it's easier to illustrate my point when I'm not fumbling around with 5 million buttons that are marked for something different. And here we go with the file install. Get this other mouse out of the way so I don't get confused. And I want you to understand how long this takes to get the installation set up and configured and running. So we're going to do this in real time, because I could shorten it, but that doesn't really give you a sense of how long it's taking. And honestly, if you watch me shorten it, you're going to wonder why mine went so much faster than yours. At least this way you have a sense of how much patience you need to have. And it does take some patience. And this install is done on a Raspberry Pi 3 with a SanDisk Class 10, I think it's a SanDisk, Class 10 32 gig card. I think it's a SanDisk Ultra, which the last time I asked, I was told that the Ultra just means it's suitable for pictures. I don't know how it's suitable for pictures. No one's ever been able to really explain that to me. But that's what I was told. So either accept that on face value and still have doubt, or doubt it, or just don't believe it. Either way, I'm okay with that because honestly, it's not my thing. Okay, so OSMC was successfully installed, so now we should do another reboot. Here we go. And we should come up with waiting for file system availability. And there is the OSMC screen. Now, I prefer, for simplicity of configuration, OSMC over OpenELEC. Although OpenELEC has some interesting features. For sure. Okay. So the time zone is way off, but that's all right. So it's welcoming us, and we have to put in, I believe, our language first. So we're going to put in my language, which is that one. And the mouse is very funny. Time zone, America, which seems to make absolutely no difference whatsoever. We're going to pick Detroit. And we can leave the name the same unless you have several on the same network. Now I have 2 OSMC machines on my network, so I need to change the name to something else. So I'm going to call this OSMC 3 because I already have 2 out there. And actually, we're just going to do suggest a random name. That's a perfect random name. So we can accept that that is the name that's going to be broadcast, and I'm good with that. Okay, and I always want the SSH service enabled so that I can get into the machine remotely if I have to. And I can continue past this because I accept it, and I want classic KODI. Okay. And we are done with the configuration. And now it should restart again, or at least reload. Okay, so now we have a basic KODI installation running under OSMC. Now you can see all of the different features that are on here that you have access to. You have movies, TV shows, music, music videos, TV, radio, add-ons, pictures, video, favorites, weather, and my OSMC. First thing we're going to do is go through settings. We're going to do player settings. And on videos, I don't change any of those. Those are all valid for me. Music is the same, except I do set crossfade on for 3 seconds. Okay. Oh, and before we go any further, sorry I forgot this step. So back up. We're going to go into the settings. We're going to change this to expert. So then we have access to all of the configuration options. And you can see all of the different configuration options that it's added from before. So this gives us a lot more options to work with. And that's why some of them are not showing up when I looked the first time. Okay. So that all is good. Disks are very useless in on a Raspberry Pi. Pictures, I do not use pictures. Language, I always set preferred audio language to my user interface language, and I always set preferred subtitle language to user interface language. And basically what that does is that tells it that I would like to hear the English track and I would like to see the English subtitles. Now, of course, if you're in another country and your language is different, it will try to find the track that plays for your preferred language. If you're in a country that doesn't have a lot of movies dubbed in that language, you can set it for whatever language you feel comfortable with. There are many, many choices as to what your language type can be, as you can see. But for me, setting it to the user interface language is definitely handy. So I'd never change any of the other things. I probably should do some things with the subtitles and make them a little bit easier to read, but honestly, I'm not terribly worried about it. Okay, and I don't need accessibility, so we can go back and we'll go to media settings. Now here's where you would set up your media sources under library. So if I wanted to set up, mouse is a little wonky, pictures. I can check on pictures and it says picture add-ons, or I can add pictures. So if I click on add pictures, this is where I could browse for my folder that holds my pictures. Now, generally it would be under SMB, but since my SMB servers don't announce their presence, I would have to go into add network location and actually log into them and add them as a location. But since this is just a demonstration, I'm not going to do that because adding them in would take forever. But I just wanted to show you where you would go to do that. And this would add in pictures. This one would do music and music videos, I believe. This one does videos and TV. Update library on startup. I usually leave that for yes on a single server or single unit system, and I set it to yes on one device in a multi-system using a database. So that way I don't have too many machines talking to my database at the same time. I kind of waffle on the hide progress of library updates because sometimes I think it's valuable to know what it's doing when it's doing it, and other times I just don't want to see it. So I kind of go back and forth on installs. Currently I have them all shut off to show it, and only one of my devices has update library on startup turned on. You can clean the library if it's getting cluttered. You can export it and you can import it. So this backs it up and this restores it. Same thing with the music library, same features. General. All these. I usually don't display file extensions. Actually, there's value in that. Everything I have is something that I recorded myself, so therefore I want to see the extensions because I know it's valuable to know what it is. But if you have similarly named files with differing extensions in the same folder, you definitely want to see it. If you don't care, you could turn it off and it will just show the name. Setting the add source buttons will show the ability to add the source that the location of the files is located. You can show hidden files and directories, which sometimes I turn on, sometimes I turn off. I don't have any hidden files. You always leave file renaming and deletion off because there are some very ambiguous menu descriptions in KODI while you're doing things. If you want to delete something from the library, it's very easy to fall into a trap and delete the entire folder as well. So by turning this off, or leaving it off actually from the default, I don't have that problem because it's not able to delete files and it can't rename them accidentally. So if the mouse gets out of control, which as you can see so far, it has had some problems skipping around and clicking on things that it's not supposed to. It's just very inaccurate. And I'll admit I'm using a very cheap mouse on here, but it's still very difficult to control. So select is the default option, is play. So when I click on something with select, it plays it. I usually turn these all on to where it extracts the video information from the files, extracts thumbnails from the video files, and extract chapter thumbnails. I don't bother combining split video items because I don't have any split video items. If you do, it's definitely an option to combine multi-part files into one file, but it requires some fiddling with the naming convention. And replace file names with library titles. I leave that on because I like to name my stuff different things and I want the tag information to pull the actual file name. I can show all items. I can show the plot for any unwatched items. I can set movie sets, which I usually turn on, and I include sets containing a single movie. So one of the big movies that I follow, which is pretty obvious, is Star Wars. Now, in my movie directory, you will find a section for Star Wars, and in that directory, you will see all of the Star Wars movies. So instead of having to track down Attack of the Clones or A New Hope or whatever the next one's going to be, I can just go to Star Wars and I can see what I have in there, and then they're all contained in there. Same thing with like some of the horror movies, especially with the horror movies. There was a sale a long time ago and I bought all the Hellraiser movies, all of them. I don't want them all to clutter up the database and add 8 more movies into my database. Instead, it just adds one folder and then puts them all in that folder. So I know if I want to watch Hellraiser, I just go to the folder and see what's in the folder. It's 1 item instead of 7 in that case. Kind of handy for me. So I do leave that turned on. And I do not show empty TV shows because if they're empty, I don't care. And I usually don't change any of these. Music, that is usually how I want them renamed, which is the tag that it's going to pull, and it's going to set the name to this based on the tag. I can have it search for thumbnails on remote shares, which I leave on. I also set tag reading on, and I turn fetch additional information during updates on. And this is where you can set your album and artist scraper. And I think the only one that's loaded by default is a universal album scraper, but you can get more. And these are the only add-ons I'm going to show for KODI. Is we have the AudioDB album scraper. So now we've added this to our KODI installation. So that is an option for us. And we could set it back to the universal album scraper if we want to. But we added an add-in, but it's a legitimate, legal, approved add-in that came with KODI. I don't need to go to another site that's going to get shut down next week and pick it up. And I'm not saying that's bad for the people who do it. I'm just saying in this particular video, we're not going to discuss it and we're not going to go over it. And I want it to automatically generate thumbnail pictures and show video files in listing. And I really don't do too much with pictures, so therefore I don't care what it says. Then we're going to click on settings and go back. Now, here's where I do not use KODI for. I don't use it for PVR or live TV. So I don't touch any of these. However, you do have a lot of options if you have live TV or a PVR that you can tie in so that KODI can pull the shows from that. I don't have one, so I don't turn it on. In fact, I actually remove it from the menu. Service settings will go into different things like the device name, that it's announcing to other systems. I can control it via HTTP, which we're actually going to turn off because it is a security risk to leave it turned on. Allow remote control from applications on this system. I'm going to leave it turned on in this case, but generally I turn it off because I do not do that. That one right there. The allow remote control from applications on other systems. Okay, UPnP and DLNA, I turn off. I don't care. However, if this is a concern to you, you can turn it on. And this would be basically if you want to make a UPnP server to stream media to UPnP clients, you would have to have your media stored or accessible locally in order for it to be able to do this. So if you do what I do and have a server that holds your media and you turn this on, it would actually run it through here, knowing where it was to the server, but I don't use this function, so I'm going to leave it off. AirPlay support, I do turn on. I don't turn on password protection, and I leave the rest as default. SMB client, there really is not much you need to do here unless you need to change some of these. The Win server at 0.0.0.0 is valid. I did try one time to change the SMB level from V3 to V2 to V1, and I didn't see any performance gain, and I did not see any changes. My work group is called work group for the purposes of this video. However, if you want to set a different work group for this to join, you would change it here. Weather, we could set a service for weather information, and we'll install another plugin. And these are the authorized KODI plugins that come from the main directory. Now, the one that I trust the most to lie about whether it's raining outside or not is Yahoo Weather. So we're going to install Yahoo Weather. It should take a matter of seconds. Okay, now Yahoo Weather is our forecaster. And for settings, I'm going to click on location, and I'm going to type in the name of the nearest town. On the wrong keyboard, of course. Actually, we'll put Louisville, Kentucky, and select it. And then I'm going to type in the name of the nearest town. On the wrong keyboard, of course. Actually, we'll put Louisville, Kentucky, and select it. And then I'm going to type in the name of the nearest town. And select it. And then I'm going to type in the name of the nearest town. And select it. And then I'm going to type in the name of the nearest town. And select it. And then I'm going to type in the name of the nearest town. And select it. And then I'm going to type in the name of the nearest town. And select it. And then I'm going to type in the name of the nearest town. And select it. And then I'm going to type in the name of the nearest town. And select it. And then I'm going to type in the name of the nearest town. And select it. And then I'm going to type in the name of the nearest town. And select it. And then I'm going to type in the name of the nearest town. And select it. And then I'm going to type in the name of the nearest town. And select it. And then I'm going to type in the name of the nearest town. And select it. And then I'm going to type in the name of the ne and that is now our default location. So as most of you know, I do live in Kentucky, although I don't live anywhere close to Louisville. All right, interface settings. Now these are where you define things like the skin, the regional settings, and there is one thing you need to do down here. Time zone country needs to be set, otherwise it will not set the clock. I don't know why it asks you for it in the beginning, because as soon as you touch this and fill it in, it fills in and populates the time zone. It just does not seem to pick up this thing from your original configuration. So when you go in and type in the time zone country, then it seems to remember what it was you were doing in the first place. Now I've got all my settings by default. Since we don't know how to measure stuff, we use Fahrenheit, we use miles per hour, showing our further lack of understanding of basic sciences and measures. I have my date set up the way it would standard be set up in the US, as well as the time. So that is normal. I run a 12-hour clock. Even though I can handle a 24-hour clock, it confuses some people. Now I use dim for screensaver because it's simple, it's easy, it's quick, and it's very low system resource. There are other options. You would have to get them, but dim and black are two of the other ones. And if we do get more, it's got an anime fan art saver, Bing photo of the week, clock, Star Trek LCAR server, photo screen saver. So none of these appeal to me, so I just dim the screen after 3 minutes. But I'm going to set this up a little bit because dimming the screen after 3 minutes is sometimes a little ridiculous. If you get up to get a glass of water and you come back, your screen's dim, and one of my devices has a problem with it waking back up, so I have this time set a little bit higher. Master lock, I don't need to worry about in my case, but if you do need to set a master code in order to unlock things, you could definitely set one here. And under other, none of these are anything I do. Ugh, can't stop yawning. Screen settings. These are just visuals. And we're going to turn off some categories. I don't use radio. I don't use favorites. And I don't use TV. So what did that do? Now, as you can see, we don't have TV, we don't have radio, and we don't have the other setting that we worked in. Just took them off the main menu, basically. Profile settings, we've already established a basic profile. I don't want the login screen, and I just want it to auto log in. And there is our profile. You can set your own profile with your own hours and such. You can even have it set so that it logs in, or you have to log it in. So I have it set to use my desktop resolution with a 60 Hertz refresh rate. I don't really worry too much about the rest of these because I do not watch things in 3D, especially not on here. I use HDMI as my sound output device because I'm lazy. And I usually leave it set for 2-channel unless I'm setting it up on my primary system, which is 7.1. So I would set it for 7.1 down there, but 2.0 is generally good enough. And depending on your input, you can only set it for certain things. Now, everything else is pretty well defaulted. There's our input. We can set our peripherals. The CEC adapter, I use my TV remote to control KODI, so therefore this is a valid adapter for me, but there are other ones. I can enable mouse and touchscreen support. And the purposes of this video, that's fine because I have a mouse hooked up to it. It does not hurt to have a spare USB wired mouse hanging around anyway to do certain things where you could do right clicks and such, unless you set them up on your controller that way already. internet access. I'm not using a proxy server. I don't limit bandwidth. I'm good to go. I don't have a shutdown timer set. I just leave it go. It doesn't worry me too much. The power consumption is so low, it doesn't make any difference. Now, under add-ons, I want it to install the updates automatically on the add-ons. I can have it manage dependencies. I can show all the apps that are running. I can turn on unknown sources, which will allow me to install apps from like a flash drive. And I don't care much about logging unless I'm having a problem. And if that's the case, then I go in and I turn them on here. Look at our system information. And looking at the basics down here, we're running OSMC, running KODI 17.5, which was compiled October 29th, 2017. Our CPU is currently sitting at 60% utilization on CPU 0, 0% on the rest. Our system memory utilization is 121 meg out of 747, so we're at 16%. Now we go into summary, and that talks about what it is we're running. Storage tells me how many storage devices the actual Raspberry Pi has itself. So this is a 32 gig card, so you can see 29 gig with a 240 gig partition as well. There is our network, how it renders video, and that's our hardware. This would run the event log to tell us if there were any problems. I haven't done anything, so there's not going to be any problems. And if I want to go view things at a file level, I can go into File Manager and do so. So we got our movies, and here's a little trick. If you're never going to add a movie, say for whatever reason movies are not your thing, you just want TV shows and music videos, you can actually remove movies from the main menu and just ditch it. If you want to enter the file section, I want to go Files and Add Videos. So now I have to browse to where the videos are, type in any login information that I have, and name it, and then I name the media source here. So I usually call my servers by a number and a letter. So we'll say the first server that we have is going to be called S1. So if we wanted to call this media S1 movies, that's what it would name the share for this. As far as location, we would type in where it was, or we would browse to it. I have not attached to the server yet, so I can't do that. But this basically names it S1. I'm going to cancel that because I don't want it added as that. And I'm going to image this disk later to do reinstalls because it's quick baseline. Okay, that's it for system. TV shows are your TV shows. They go as seasons and series and then down from there. Music, all of your music that it can find. Music videos, same thing. Add-ons, this is where you find anything in any repository that's available for you to download. So I'm going to check for available updates, but it says there aren't any, so I'm not going to worry about it. Here's how you install the add-ons. My add-ons recently updated. Install from repository, install from zip file, or search. You can see my local weather here. It's about 19 degrees right now and cloudy. Tomorrow it's going to be 28, 37, and Wednesday it's going to snow. I'm sure that's going to be wrong, but whatever. Now, if we go into the My OSMC area, it gives us some more fine-tuning and ways to handle things. So the first thing is remotes. I can go in here and load a remote, and it tells me what to do based on what kind of remote I have. So these are all the valid remotes. So if I've got the Xbox controller for television, God, see, this is actually kind of difficult. And I'm using Lurk with it. It tells me how to do it and what I can set it for, and there's the profile for it right there. So we'll exit. Now this next one is settings for the Raspberry Pi. Now I usually don't overclock. I usually don't mess around with anything in here. I just let it do its thing. It's generally pretty good out of the box. This is event log. All the logging options tell me what I want to look at. And they're all turned off by default, so you actually have to go in and turn them on in order for them to start collecting. I'm going to put that keyboard down just a sec. All right, so this would be, we're going to come back to this, but this is services. And the only service I have running is SSH server, which is what I want. This is overclocking, which allows us to overclock the processor. So you can set it for turbo or normal or custom. And they're all very well described over here. This would be, the App Store, so I could set a cron task scheduler, an SMB server, SSH, transmission, FTP server, and a TV head-in server. None of those are anything I need to worry about. I usually set up a cron server to run tasks at a certain time, but in this particular case, I'm not going to be running scripts, so I don't need to worry about it. This is the network configuration. We're currently adapted wired. The next one is wireless. You can actually attach Bluetooth devices with a Raspberry Pi 3 because it has that capability. It can actually act as a hotspot if you want it to. And you can set up MySQL video databases. So you can go in here and say what you want to call it, what's the IP address, what's the port it's on, user and password, and import watch state and import resume points. So the database will keep track of the information instead of your local box, which makes it way more efficient because it usually has way more space for way cheaper. Okay, now we'll go back. And then the last thing we want to look at is updates. So if you click on updates, you can tell it how long you want it to go for update checks, what you want it to do while it's updating, what you want to do when you back up, and manual controls where we scan for an update now. Now I'm not going to do that because at this point the video has gone on quite a bit and I don't want you to sit through an update because they're very cumbersome in some cases. It's basically the same thing we've seen at the beginning where it actually does a quickie install, patches everything, and gets up and running and goes. Okay, and that is pretty much basic KODI. Now, yeah, I do realize, like I said, people use this with add-ons to view movies that are copyrighted and whatnot. But we're not going to worry about that right now. I'm not going to even enter into discussion about whether they're good, bad, and different. Just know that some people do run this in a different way. You might run it in a different way. You might configure it a different way. These are just my settings, how I like them to be. But for now, that's it for this video. If you'd like me to go into more depth, I would be happy to do so. I'm still not going to install any of the applications because I really don't want to get in any trouble for that. Who knows what's going to happen and when they're going to come back and do a crackdown on a particular app, and having my name attached to it probably would not be in my best interest. So right now we're just going to do KODI because for my purposes this is perfect. It shares media. I attach the folders to where they are and it picks it up, indexes it, keeps it up to date, and that is it. And that's it for the video too. Thank you for watching. And if you have any comments or things you want to see in more depth, please put them in the description and I'll see what I can do about getting to them. I've still got some time with these Raspberry Pis that my friend dropped off, and that's why I'm doing these videos so that I can get them configured correctly. Eventually I'll get around to actually installing what I want to install on them, and they'll go back, but I have a few laying around all the time, so that's not really an issue. Until next time, though, thank you very much for watching, and I'll talk to you later. I'm going to do contest winner announcements from Saturday tomorrow. I actually got called away yesterday. I was not home at all, and tonight was kind of a disaster. So I'll do the announcement tomorrow for the winners of the key contest, and I'll probably announce another contest. But, well, I don't even think it'd be tomorrow. It'll probably be today from when you're watching this, because I've still got to edit it. Speaking of which, I got to go because I got to edit this video. I'll talk to you later. Take it easy. Thanks for watching, and stick around for more Raspberry Pi videos. See ya.